anytime you get an introduction and applause like that, you got to quit while you're ahead, but I don't think it would be quite polite for me to walk out just yet. I was hoping I would have a little bit more time backstage to talk to Ken and some of the other guys who just won these big awards. Recently, I had the opportunity to sit down in a 18-wheeler simulator. I've always had a great deal of respect for the trucking industry and the amazing work that takes place right here in the state of Arkansas, and what an important industry that is for our state. And I got a whole new appreciation when I sat down in that chair, and after I ran over about 5 or 6 people and took out a couple of families, I was quickly asked to step away from the simulator, and all my rights had been provoked to continue practicing. So in all seriousness, I am so grateful for the unbelievable work that those of you in this room do on a daily basis. Not only do you help power our entire state, but you power our entire country. In so many cases, you have stepped up, particularly over the last several years. We saw what a vital role the trucking industry plays, not just in Arkansas, but across the country. And we are right here in the heart and the center of what trucking does all over the United States. And the people in this room make Arkansas look so good on a daily basis. We can't tell you how thankful we are for the dedication that you have to the work that you do, but also the way that you represent our state and help us way outkick our coverage, making us one of the leaders in trucking across the country. So thank you so much for the work that you do and for letting me be here with you today. I figure you've had to suffer through enough speeches, certainly probably enough from me over the course of the last couple years, and hopefully you'll get to hear a lot more over the next 8, that we would spend this time and open it up today to take a few questions. So I'm happy at this point to open up, Shannon, and turn it over to you and your team. And if you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to take those at this time. Thank you again for the work that you do and the way that you represent our state. Now, I didn't say that he could ask any questions, so unless there is somebody else that... I just said all these great things about the trucking industry and how well you represent our state, and then you get Blake to be the first person to ask the question and mess it all up.
Governor, throughout your campaign, one of the main themes as you traveled the state was workforce. You can see in this room and this industry, workforce is a big deal. It's the lifeblood. What are you personally and what is your administration doing to retain and recruit workforce for our state? And kind of, you don't have to go into specific industries, but what are y'all doing to retain and recruit workforce for the state of Arkansas?
Well, I don't think there's any secret that there is a massive workforce shortage across the country. It's not unique to Arkansas. As I've traveled around, it doesn't matter what corner of the state you're in, it doesn't matter what industry leaders you're talking to, every single one, when you ask them what is the biggest challenge they have, is building and bringing on a skilled, qualified workforce. And so one of the things that we've spent a lot of time is investing in how does Arkansas become the leader in addressing this problem. We've done this in a number of ways. On the very first days upon taking office, one of the first things I did was sign an executive order creating the workforce cabinet. You know, I was shocked to find out when I first started in the transition process after the election and in the days leading up to actually taking office, looking at the various agencies within state government that all have a workforce component. And I asked, how often do you guys sit down and talk about addressing the workforce shortage? And they looked at me like I was crazy. They said, well, we've actually never met. I said, I don't understand. You're literally all work in the same administration. You're all tasked with dealing with building a skilled, qualified workforce here in Arkansas, and you've never all sat down at a table together. And therefore, we work on what's under our umbrella, and they handle what's under theirs. And so we quickly brainstormed and came up with the idea of creating the workforce cabinet and bringing all of the stakeholders to the table. And then I appointed Mike Rogers, who came from the private sector, to be the chief workforce officer and report directly to the governor's office, meeting on a regular basis with the workforce cabinet and bringing all the players to the table. It can't be a government approach. It has to be a partnership between education, between the private sector and government, all coming to the table and working together. And all those things aren't going to be successful if we aren't actually training our young people to be capable of doing anything. For a long time, I've said we look at education in the wrong way. We look at the end, what does this student know? And instead we should be asking ourselves, what can this person do? And if when they finish from high school or a 2-year program or a 4-year university and they're not capable of stepping immediately into the workforce, then we have failed to prepare them in the way that we should. And so our goal has been to really take a step back and how do we prepare students to actually go directly into the workforce. We've done that in a number of ways by creating a really strong foundation for students at the earliest level. I'm very proud of the fact that we just passed the most comprehensive, aggressive education reform package, I think, anywhere in the country through Arkansas Learns, actually focusing on putting students on a lifetime pathway to prosperity instead of making them forever dependent on what we know to be a very broken system. And I'm proud of the fact that one of the big pieces of that is helping those students at a much earlier age make a determination about going into the workforce and what that could look like, creating things like the dual diploma. So students as early as 9th grade can start taking classes and getting certification so that when they graduate, they're prepared to go immediately into the workforce. These are some of the investments that we're making, some of the legislation we've been able to pass, and I'm really proud of the fact that I think Arkansas will become a blueprint for the rest of the country on what it looks like to build a skilled, qualified workforce. So now I take back a couple of those mean comments I made about Blake since he asked a pretty good question. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Can you share some of the highlights of your, I need this. Can you please share some of the highlights of your recent efforts to cut taxes?
Absolutely. I think any time that we can stop the exponential growth of government and that we can find savings and pass that on to the taxpayer, those are the things that we should be looking for. And we're very proud of the fact that we're going to continue chipping away at our state's income tax until we get it down to zero. It's not going to be something that happens overnight, but as we can continue to make progress and put more of people's hard-earned money back in their pockets, that's greater investment into the long-term future of our state. When we have Texas and Tennessee on each side of us, we have 2 states that we're constantly competing with that have zero state income tax. We have to get more competitive if we want to attract and retain talent here in our state. And so that's one of the big focuses. There have been a lot of pushes to do different tax cuts in different places, but I think the best place that we can really lean into is on the income tax, and we were able to push through both personal and corporate income tax cuts during this legislative session, and I have a great deal of confidence we'll be able to continue to do that over the next couple of years as well. I know this is not normally a shy group, so feel free to jump up.
I'll try to give you a soft question.
This will be the one that ends my career, so.
We heard a lot this morning from earlier sessions about nuclear verdicts and tort reform in some other states, and I was just wondering where you or your administration might be at addressing tort reform for the state of Arkansas.
I think it's something that we certainly have to have on the table, and certainly has to be part of the conversation. And it wasn't something that became a big priority during this session, but I wouldn't be surprised if it comes up even during our fiscal session next year. That's been pushed back a little bit because the presidential primary that normally takes place in February, it'll happen in April. I know there's a lot of ongoing discussion. I think it's something that we certainly have to take a look at and engage and see what opportunities are in front of us for Arkansas. Anybody else? This table's like popular over here. Y'all have already gotten 2 questions.
The Governor Sanders. Right, sorry.
Oh, sorry, there's a light right there, so I couldn't see you.
Thank you for being here and for what you've done. With everything that's going on, we've heard a lot about disruption and growth and accelerating growth. Shelley Simpson talked about how growth is oxygen, right? And that's going to help propel us forward. And so with growth, obviously you need training and then also mechanisms to help fund the training. So I guess twofold question. One, what can be done from a state level for funding training opportunities for industry partners? And then what disruption would you like to see within the state to help accelerate growth in Arkansas?
Great question. I think there are a couple things when it comes to funding. We have a number of state grants that already exist through Department of Commerce that allow us to target specific sectors. We know that the trucking industry is vital to our state, and so that would be a natural fit for us to invest in and lean into. That's one of the big tasks that Mike Rogers has, is doing kind of a statewide assessment of what we have, what's working, where are the holes, and how do we fill those. And so that's kind of the process that we're in right now, is that assessment phase. We have never taken a kind of whole of government comprehensive approach and comprehensive look at workforce and building up that growth, building up those sectors, and that's what we're doing right now. That's why bringing all of the players together is really important, because we have so many people that are working on the same things but not communicating with one another. And that will open up, I think, a lot more resources so that we can invest directly into things like apprenticeship programs and partnering up with technical education and vocational training programs across the state. But right now, there's not even a comprehensive list and look at what really exists. And so that's kind of the big place, is figuring out what we have, figuring out what we need, and then building that plan. And Mike has been tasked with doing that. And I have a great deal of confidence that he will not only deliver on that, but I love that you use the term disruption, because he usually introduces himself as, "Hi, I'm Mike Rogers, I'm the disruptor." And so he is there to flip the script and really change the way that we have approached this. And it's clearly one of the biggest priorities that we have for long-term success for the state. And I feel very good about first building a strong foundation through education, taking this assessment, and then creating a plan that puts us on a good path forward. Anybody else? We'll take maybe one more question. Oh, we've met. You still owe me a truck, Butch, so word must have gotten out that you heard I wasn't a very good driver, and so you changed your mind on that.
Not at all. I was passing through West Memphis day before yesterday, and I noticed the rest area that the highway department is just about completed. And I'd like to know, are you seeking other locations throughout the state for rest areas for our trucks?
Absolutely. I know this is something that's a big priority, and that stop will open up, I think, about 85 new spaces, which will be a huge addition in rest area spots. We're looking, and Arkansas Department of Transportation is looking at a couple of other locations, and hopefully we'll have some that mirror what we're able to do there off of I-40 in West Memphis. My parents, I know that we've transitioned away from calling them truck stops, and we were joking earlier, my parents' first date was at the Fulton truck stop. And so we're a little partial to the truck stops in our family. We like to tease my dad that despite the fact that that was their first date, she married him anyway. But it worked out pretty well for me, and we're certainly very supportive. But again, Arkansas Department of Transportation has done a great job on opening up that space, and we're looking for other opportunities to do that as well. Thank y'all so much for letting me be here today. Really appreciate it. More importantly, appreciate the work that you do every single day and the way that you represent our state, and just, again, the critical role that you play into our state's success. So thank you so much. And Shannon, thank you for letting me be here with you guys today. Really appreciate it.